We are learning Mishna Gittin, Parak Beis, Chapter 2, Mishna Gimel, Mishnah 3. Ba'kol kaisvin. One can write a get with all types of ink. And then it gets more specific. B'diyoi, which they translate here as the black ink used to write a Torah scroll. That's called diyoi. B'sam. Sam they translate as orpiment, a yellow dye. Sikra is vermilion, which is a red dye. Uva kaimais. Kaimais they translate as with gum Arabic, a tree sap. Uva kankantaim, or with ferrous sulfite, ink made from iron treated with sulfuric acid. Uva chadavar shal kayama, or any type of lasting ink. Shal kayama means it's going to last. Any ink that's going to last, that means it's permanent, makes a permanent mark when it dries. That is the kind of ink you can use for a get. However, ein kaisvin like b'mashkim, like b'mei. You cannot write the get with mashkim. Now, mashkim they explain here as liquids such as berry juice, or with other fruit juices, or with anything that is not lasting. Those kinds of inks you cannot use for the get, although it'll last. What?
Or a pencil.
That could very well be, maybe. If it's not going to last, even when it dries, even though temporarily it'll be there, but when you give her the get, it'll all be written. But since it's not going to last, this is not considered this is not the kind of ink that you may use and the get won't be kosher. Now, so the first part of the Mishnah was talking about what kind of ink to use, what to write the get with, and now the Mishnah talks about ala kol kaisvin. May write a get. We're talking about now what can we write the get on? What's the material? What is the get written on? So the Mishnah says ala kol kaisvin. You could write the get upon anything. And the examples given are al ha'ola shal zayis, on the leaf of an olive tree. Okay. Now, as we're going to see, the leaf of this olive tree is already detached from the tree. It's not on the tree. It's attached from the tree. Valakeren shalpara, or on the horn of a cow. V'noisen lasapara, and you give her the whole cow. Meaning it doesn't work to write the get on the horn, detach the horn, and then give it to her. You can write it on the horn, but then you have to give her the whole cow, which means the whole cow will be the get. Al yad shel eved, you could theoretically write the get on the hand of a servant, of a slave. V'noisen lasaved, then you got to give her the whole slave. So basically, what the Mishnah here is saying is that, first of all, they bring down here from the Tiferes Yisrael, when it says on the leaf of a olive tree, it's not only that, any leaf would work. The olive tree, the reason the Mishnah uses a case of an olive is because it's thick, and therefore easier to write on. And then, as pointed out, in all these cases, you're not cutting off the horn, but you're giving the whole cow. And that's because there is a law, the Bartanur explains from the Gemara, that the Gemara said, that the Torah says, you write it and give it to her. So that implies there should be nothing that is considered a significant break in between writing and giving. You got to be able to write it and give it. It's possible that there'll be a break in the middle, right? You can write the get and give it a little bit later, but the point is it should be possible to write it and give it right away. If you need to do something else in the middle in order to be able to facilitate it, it's not a good get. So if the horn of the cow, if you're going to write the get on the horn of the cow and then detach it, that means that this get was not able to be a get right after it's being written, because you have to detach it. But if you go ahead and you give the whole cow in one shot, then essentially you wrote the get on the horn, the whole cow is the get, is the bill of divorce, and you give her the whole cow, and you're good to go. There was nothing in between. You wrote it and you gave it. And that's the same thing by the serpent, and that has to be the same thing by the leaf of the tree. The leaf of the tree, it can't be that you wrote it on the leaf and then attached the leaf and gave it to her, but rather you went ahead and the leaf was already detached and then you gave it to her. Because otherwise, it means that in order for this get to have been given to her, you would have needed to do something else in between, which would have been to detach it, which would invalidate it. Because the Torah wants the get to be a get, it wants the get to be something that could be written and given right away. And since if you're using the leaf if you're using the leaf or the horn. If in order to make if in order it to be the get that you want it to be, you have to detach it to something else in between, then that's not being able to have a writing and a giving right away. Rabbi Yosi Aglili Omer. Rabbi Yosi Aglili says, "Ein kais v'loy al davar sheish baruach chayim v'loy ala achlim." One cannot write a get on anything that is living or on anything that is food. Meaning, Rabbi Yosi Aglili is arguing on the examples we just gave before of writing on a leaf, on an olive leaf, or writing on an animal or on a servant. That's because, according to him, the Torah says you have to write here a sefer krisis, a book of divorce. Sefer means a book, a scroll of divorce, and a scroll is not, and a scroll is not live, right? If you're going to call something a scroll, it's not going to be called a scroll if it's alive. It's not going to be called a scroll if it's considered food. And in this case, the olive leaf is considered food for animals. Anybody want to guess what food it's, which animal it's a food for? It's in the Chumash.
Goats.
It's in the Chumash. What animal would a leaf be food for? What animal would an olive leaf be food for?
Dove, not the dove.
The dove. Exactly. Exactly, the dove. The dove by Noach, right? The dove came back with an olive leaf in its mouth. That means that's its food.
Yeah.
That's its food. That's what it eats. See, everybody thinks that it just brought it back like randomly. Randomly it brought it back. And it became the sign for peace. But the way it's being explained here is that, at least the Tosfos Yosef explains it. You know why it came back with the leaf, that kind of leaf? Because that's its food. That's what it eats. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yosi Aglili, it cannot be considered. It's not called a sefer. It's not called a scroll. If it's food or it's alive, that's not called a scroll. And therefore, these examples wouldn't be good for this reason. Because the Torah says it's got to be a sefer, it's got to be a scroll, and a scroll is not something that's alive or food. Now, that's Rabbi Yosi Aglili. The Tanna Kama clearly argued and said you could use it. And the way the Bartanur explains it is because if the Torah would have said, because Savla bis sefer krisis, write her the divorce in a scroll of divorce, that would have implied that the word sefer means scroll. But the word sefer krisis just means a record. Sefer krisis, a telling of krisis, a record of krisis. A record just means what says what's going on, and therefore it could be alive, it could be food, and that's where the Tanna Kama says you could write the get on the olive leaf or on the horn of the cow, as long as there is no detaching taking place between the writing and the giving. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Doesn't the olive
This